Good morning, everyone. First of all, it is a great honor for me to be addressing such an eminent audience here, coming from different institutions in Turkey, and also from other countries. I think I have about half an hour time to deliver this talk, but before I start, I want to thank Musa Hoca, Musa Kavas, and Kubilay Yıldırım for inviting me for this conference and giving me this chance to be addressing to you. The title is Impact of Global Climate Change on Agricultural Production, and specifically with sugar beet case in Turkey. Let's look at a little bit a brief history of the long climate issues. As you know that the age of our world is about 4.6 billion years. And if you look at that chart here on the right-hand side, so there are some ages that are critical, like Pongola, Huronian, and Cryogenian, and so on. So in the first 1.5 billion years, nothing appears on Earth, but later than in Pongolia period, 2.9 and 2.8 billion years ago, the oldest known ice age was recorded. Then triggered by the Great Oxidation Event, that is the Huronian period, and so on. So that graph, in fact, the previous graph, in fact, shows that the changes in climate and on Earth, in fact, have significant impacts that I'll tell you more about in the coming slides. Reasons of climate change today. Well, we all know that greenhouse gases are having a great impact on, and burning fuels and also releasing carbon dioxide and other heat trapping gases on Earth. And deforestation is another problem, and we keep cutting down trees all over the country, all over the world in fact, and therefore the more trees we cut down, we in fact accumulate more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which is having serious problems for us, for our atmosphere, for our environment. And of course, industrial activities, anthropological effects that we also keep producing a large amount of greenhouse gases through factories, automobiles, and so on. So industry is good, but also has a great negative effect on our environment. And of course, agriculture. The agricultural practices have been improved a lot, but the more we improve these practices, we unfortunately produce more gases which are adversely affecting our environment. Then what are the results of global warming? Well, extreme temperatures that we experience, we observe every day in every part of the world. And melting glaciers are a significant problem because they rise in the level of the sea, which are going to be very problematic for certain parts of the countries, especially in Europe. Those close to the oceans, including Netherlands and so on, they will face significant problems in the coming years or decades or so. Intense storms and droughts and floods, also we all know that happening. Acidification of soil is another problem, and rising sea level just mentioned, which is critical, and also regional shifts is another phenomena that we have to take into consideration. Let's look at a little bit global land and ocean temperature anomalies. That is the data for the last about 175 years. The July to this year, July, in fact, has one of the highest temperature that we have observed in our country. And if you look at the land and ocean temperatures as we compare to the 20th century average value, so 1.2 for land and 0.92 Celsius degrees for oceans is the amount of the increase of temperature, which is really alarming. So all you know that this is really a big problem. So third warmest July on record globally after 2024 and 23 was also recorded. If you look at some specific countries like United Kingdom, Turkey, Bahrain, and Japan, as you see in this slide, so there are radical increases in the temperature of air, soil, and oceans, and so on. So these are going to be causing serious problems for all of us. not for us, but for our children, for our grandchildren, and for the next generations coming, will be facing up these problems. So we have to be very careful, and we have to take some actions, very radical and urgent actions in this sense. When we look at the snapshot of climate values in the last 2 years in Turkey, if you look at this map, everywhere is red, dark red. Therefore, temperature increases every single part of our country. And if you look at the data here, the 24 and 2024 annual average temperature increased by 1.7, which is really a lot. And also on the contrary, precipitation, rainfall also decreases by 6.3%. Therefore, heat going up and water resources are going down, which is really a worst case scenario for all of us, for all living species. And our 50 years, the last 50 years July record is slopey in the northeastern part of Turkey, and the temperature reached 50.5 Celsius degrees. And if you make a short comparison of 24, the values of year 24, as well as the last 29 years between 1991 and 2020, so if you look at this figure here in the winter, spring, summer, and autumn periods, but I apologize that on the right-hand side, the blue bar was missing, so there's a drawing mistake. I'm sorry, my assistant did that. I apologize for this. So if you look at here, the all above average temperatures in all seasons, especially with warm summers and autumns as well. And this confirms, obviously, a growing warming trend across seasons and highlights the need for adaptation. So plant scientists, plant breeders know what it means. Hakan Hoca is here, I know he's the next speaker. So adaptation and breeding methodologies and approaches are going to be very critical if we have to be serious in tackling these problems that occurring in our environment. This is one strategy. So in ecosystems and agriculture, we have to combine, and the interrelationship between these two phenomena has to be resolved very carefully and intensely. So plant breeders have a great responsibility in tackling this problem down to a limited extent. Okay, this chart also tells us that Turkey's summer is getting hotter and hotter. So if you look at the last 50 years here, you see that everything is going up, and then colors changing from green to red, unfortunately. And that is going to be causing a significant degree of vulnerability. So I'll tell you what vulnerability is all about, but it is a problem. Climate change intensifies environmental stressors and weakening plant defense, unfortunately, and also threatening the global agriculture. And food security is a critical issue, and if we cannot ensure this food security, we are going to having a serious problems all over the world. Therefore, food security is one of the most top issues in whole world that I've been discussed about. Rising temperatures, that's the critical issue. Water scarcity, temperature goes up, water resource going down, and carbon dioxide imbalance because of industrial activities and anthropologic activities and so on. And therefore, this increases vulnerability of plants to diseases. So when climate changes, heat goes up, carbon dioxide becomes imbalanced, biotic pressure is increasing, and extreme events, storms, thunderstorms, and so on, becoming more often, and also salinity and acidification of soils and so on is another problem. I want to tell a little bit about the disease triangle. So what is this? As all plant scientists or pathologists know that disease is a phenomenon between host and pathogen. But we know that the environmental factors are also affecting this interrelationship greatly. Therefore, host and pathogen interactions is strongly, greatly affected by this. And host, pathogen, and environment triangle has to be studied very carefully. And when climate change, that is the main topic issue of today's activity, of this conference, the environmental lag has become critical, extremely critical, I would say, making the triangle a key framework for both understanding and managing plant health. So understanding and managing, I bolded these two words that may make your attention, draw your attention, that we have to focus more on these two issues. Agricultural vulnerability to climate stressors. Beyond plant pathology, rapid climate change has also introduced systemic concepts such as vulnerability to describe agricultural risks. Because, as I mentioned that in the previous slide, that food security has to be assured. Otherwise, we are all in trouble. Not today, but also for next generations too. So IPCC describes the term vulnerability as the propensity or predisposition to be adversely affected. In that case, sensitivity, exposure, and adaptive capacity are critical. So with specific reference to adaptive capacity, plant breeders have a great responsibility or burden on their shoulders that they have to be working more and more for the sake of next generation's food security and also environmental improvement. Agricultural vulnerability, of course, having certain conclusions. It has some direct impacts and also global projections and measurements. Therefore, obviously, when environment gets worse, then we get yield losses and pests and diseases spread more, not in the country, but the whole different regions of the globe. And also soil degradation is another significant problem. So for example, wheat, rice, maize, and yield losses are quite common in every part of the world. And this is really going to be alarming in the next couple of days or decades. So we have certain indicators, so we have to take measures, we have to work more, and we have to be coordinated in a rather close manner, not in the country, but also the whole world, all organizations, institutions, academia. They have to come together, think seriously, and work more and harder on this issue, rapidly, with no pause. All right, there's a case study regarding the northern part of Konya. So most people know that where Konya is in Turkey, and it's obvious that the drought and temperature increase is a problem for Konya region too, especially rain-fed regions reaching to 67%, another alarming issue. And weak irrigation infrastructure is also another critical problem. So we have to take some policies. So governmental issues, policymakers have to work harder to improve and to implement better policies for agricultural production and planning and so on, especially prices. The stability in prices in Turkey is a serious problem, so we have to also organize this and improve this part too. And some institutional solutions also has to be put in effect, again, as soon as possible. Well, now it's time to move on to sugar beet case. From now on, from this slide on, I will be mostly talking about sugar beet breeding and sugar beet case in Turkey. But in general, if you look at the risks and advantages of agricultural practices in Turkey, the main risks are natural conditions, dependency, high risk and uncertainties, pricing and policies and so on, agriculture, just mentioned, and seasonality of production, so certain prices of certain products changes from year to year. Therefore, one product could be a high price this year, but next year you cannot guarantee. Therefore, it has to be organized in a good manner. And fluctuation production costs is another, mostly related to financial issues or economical crisis that we've been going on through in our country for the last couple of years. Well, don't we have some advantages? Of course we do. And biodiversity Anatolia is a quite rich region, and agriculture-based industry in Turkey is rather strong as compared to our neighbor countries and the Middle East, and even to some certain European countries. We are not too bad, and climatic characteristics, so on. And of course, geographical location. Turkey has different regions, and we have different patterns of crop production in these regions. And we are in 55 products. We are in top 10 in the world. Therefore, this is our strongest side of this issue. Sugar beet. Myself and my wife, I say Professor Ekrem Gürel and Mehmet Cengiz Babaloğlu from Kastamonu University, we've been advising Turkish Sugar Corporation for the last couple of years, and we've been working mostly day and night to improve national, local sugar beet varieties, because sugar beet is very critical for Turkey. Roughly 100 years or so we've been growing, cultivating sugar beet in Turkey, but stay firm, we've been completely dependent on European countries, mainly Germany, France, and Belgium. And we produce a lot of sugar beet. We are in the top 5 in the world, but we don't have any national seeds at all. So we did some work on it, and in the coming slides, I will tell you more about on this. And I hope I will not force much of the narcissistic and the humble ratio in this talk. We have to tell you what we have achieved, but I don't want to hide anything that what we have achieved. Therefore, I beg your understanding and tolerance on this. Well, sugar production, like sugar is used for sugar beet plants, used for many reasons. For sugar product, you use lots of, I know most of you using sugar. You don't have your tea or coffee without sugar. Therefore, this is what we do for you to serve you better. Livestock feed and biofuel production, cellulose for paper making, and also pharmaceuticals and biodegradable degradable plastics are also associated with sugar beet production. Wide distribution range due to adaptability of sugar beet in many countries, 41 countries in the world, sugar beet can be cultivated. And Turkey is, as I said, after Russia, France, United States, Germany, we are in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in the 5th place in the world. And in the global production rates, if you look at roughly 30% of sugar consumption all over the world is in fact met by sugar beet. The rest is met by sugar cane, mostly. And market value is quite high, reaching to 15 billion US dollar a year. And it is projected that it's going to be increased, this production going to be increased in the whole of the world and reaching increased by 1.2% over the next decades, which is a lot, to be honest. And it is expected to reach 202 million tons by 2034. That is roughly 9 years later, in the next decade. All right, what is the important one? 95% of domestic sugar demand of Turkey is contributed by sugar beet. So therefore, in that case, we are a self-sufficient country. So we don't depend on other countries for sugar production. But for the seed, we are 100%. We used to be, until the last 2 years, we used to be 100% dependent on foreign countries. As I'll tell you more about this in the next slides. So in 2024, last year's data, 23 million tons were produced in Turkey, and that was 22.1% increase as compared to the year before, that is 2023. And if you look at the long-term trend of sugar production in Turkey, it's between 12 to 23 million tons every year. And for future outlook, I would say that sustainable growth should be expected and improved seed quality. I'll tell you more about this in a minute. And of course, modern techniques, modern agricultural practices and applications have to be employed in every single stage of this process. And what we can tell about Shigu beet and climate change in association with each other, but rising temperature and rainfall variability. So rainfall in general decreases, but another problem next to it is that also it's variable, it's not stable. So you cannot project, you cannot plan your production, even though your rain-fed production is common in every part of the country. Drought reduces root growth, that's for Shigu beet, of course, and excess rain causes certain diseases, and therefore storage losses increase. And these are all negative phenomena, and if the three of them come together, you are in trouble. The high temperature disrupts photosynthesis respiration balance. I don't know how many of you are in the plant physiology or this process familiar with. Respiration and photosynthesis in plant systems are rather critical. So, and if you disturb this balance, then you get really big losses, and also you reduce quality and yield, and also you reduce your vulnerability to, you increase your vulnerability to certain diseases and adverse environmental conditions. So genetic diversity provides drought-tolerant varieties, though often with lower yield stability. This is quite common phenomenon for all plant species, as you know quite well. All right, a case study from kongreye again. So irrigation levels, 100%, 75, 50, and 25, so quarter, half, and 3 and 4. And if you see that the highest root yield, of course, as expected, is obtained when you apply 100% irrigation. But on the contrary, interesting enough, the highest sugar content is obtained when you irrigation amount is 50% of the full irrigation. So for a sustainable strategy, maybe if we have a problem in the water, so water scarcity is a problem, so 50% irrigation could be rather strategic, rather logical or rational. May not be economical, but strategic and rational. Some historical milestones information in Shigu beet breeding in Turkey. As I mentioned, that roughly 100 years. Next year is going to be 100th anniversary of Shigu beet production in Turkey. The first factory was planted, established in Alpullu, 1926, by the direction of our national leader, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. So since then, 99 years so far, we've been growing, cultivating sugar beet in Turkey. So in 72, 96, about 20-24 years in this specific period, certain diploid multigerm varieties developed, but named Türk Şeker 1. But this variety was cultivated only about 20 years. Since then it disappeared because the rhizomonia disease devastated the whole country, and these varieties were not, this variety was not resistant to rhizomonia disease. Therefore, we had to be completely dependent again. And in 1996 till today, local varieties was unable, unuseful, unstable for us. Therefore, as I said, roughly 50 million euros every year we pay for Shigu beet seed to German, Belgian, and French companies. So under my coordinator, Professor Songül Gürel, she's an expert in classical breeding of sugar beet. As I told you that I'll try to get a good balance of narcissism and humble behavior, but Songül Gürel is the only Shigu beet breeder in Turkey, which is not good. So I have to be Where's my wife? I have to take care of her very well, but she's the only breather. Professor Cengiz Baloğlu, he is one of the great molecular biologists in our country. We are proud of him, and he joined us a couple of 4 or 5 years, Cengiz, 5 years ago. And then he really contributed a lot to our project. He developed a lot of molecular markers, and they saved our life and time and management and resources. Maybe I'll tell you more. Therefore, we have, I'm proudly telling you that we have developed first national sugar beet varieties. They were registered, seeds were produced, distributed to the farmers, and they were grown, cultivated this year, and towards the end of this month, most likely with our agriculture minister, with a little chance, President's wife, Emine Erdogan, will join at ceremony in Haymana, and first national local sugar beet plants will be harvested with a national program. Right, so what we did, well, we employed biotechnological applications, we used classical breedings, we employed molecular marker technology, so we combined all what we have in our hands and what we know, and we organized, we combined a team, not only 2 of us, but these are academicians also in Turkish sugar factories. They have a very long-lasting and very strong research institute in Ankara, Sugar Beet Research Institute. So a group was established there. So about 20-25 people are working day and night on this project and developed. So tissue culture is one of our strongest space, so clonal propagations and so on. We have published a lot of papers in sugar beet. We are far beyond is the #1 in Turkey. And if you look at the world literature, we are one of the few groups in the world that are very talented, very strong in micropropagation and biotechnological applications of sugar beet. Acclimatization, vernalization, so we have set up our systems in Sugar Institute. Ovual culture, we have published a lot of papers on it. So when you use ovules, you get plants, you regenerate plants, but these plants are haploid. So if you double their chromosomes by certain agents, antimitotic agents, and then you get diploid plant. But that diploid plant, as you know well, that's 100% homozygous. Therefore, within 6 months, let's say within 8 months, you produce 100% homozygous plant material. With classical breedings, that takes ages, 9 years, 10 years with back crossing. And even at the end of that back crossing process, you do not get theoretically 100%. You get 99%, 99 something. So this technology is quite strong, and we have successfully employed this technology in our project. We also established a transgenic plant production system. We use agrobacterium system. We use particle bombardment system. Therefore, and using GFP as a marker gene, we developed transgenic sugar beet material. It's not allowed in Turkey, you know that, but as a research part, we keep it in our lab, in our greenhouses. When it is released, hopefully in the future, so we can quickly incorporate this material into our ongoing breeding projects in this hand. And also, CRISPR-Cas9, other new gene editing technologies are going to be implemented, and Cengiz Hoca and our team members are also working on it. And also, we recently applied European Union project, the PRIMA program. So if it was supported by European Union, another large, big, strong project is going to be implemented in association with more than 10 countries, 10 or 11 countries in Europe. As I told you that Cengiz Hoca and his team members developed certain molecular markers with our SSR, CAPS, or even DFLP. And these are rather life-saving technologies. We can detect relationship dendrograms, so if we have a material, genetic material, it is true to type or not, it belongs to that genotype or not, so we can test them. In the past, we used to get this service from other companies, mostly from other countries, but now we do it with our own background. We do it in the Sugar Institute. And also PCA analysis is also another issue. Well, we have completed so many projects in sugar beet, so many projects, but in sugar beet more than I think 10 or 12 projects. Most of them are were supported by TÜBİTAK. Some of them are 1001, and some of them are 1003. So we completed 2 1003 and 1 is ongoing now. And these are all mostly on sugar beet, breeding, classical breeding, genotyping, and so on. And also CRISPR-Cas9 based technology is also going to be implemented. In the past, we cooperated with the Middle East Technical University for the production of transgenic sugar beet plants. We got a lot of help from them. I thank them again. And also for both particle bombardment and agrobacterial-mediated genetic transformation were done with the help of Middle East Technical University. The organizers, Musa Hoca and project partner Cengiz Hoca and Kubilay, they're all coming from Middle East Technical University, so you could be proud of your university, you graduate, you get your degree, PhD degree. All right, so Sugar Institute, certain projects are going on there, and in all of these projects were either coordinated by Professor Ekrem Gürel or by me for the last 5 years, and Cengiz Hoca also joined us. So we are a good team. Well, this is what the ongoing project, TÜBİTAK TAGEN 1003. It has 3 sub-projects, and they are mainly focuses on the classical breeding to combine multiple rhizomania resistance genes. We have RZ1, 2, 3, 5, so every year in different locations, and new disease pathogens are arising, unfortunately. So we have to be careful, we have to take our actions beforehand, so we have to behave rather proactive, scientifically proactive in this sense, and therefore to develop lines, genetic lines, breeding lines, resistant to both rhizomonia and many other diseases like Cercospora, Rhizoctonia, and so on. And this is another ongoing project. So the main focus is developing local and national sugar beet cultivars that I mentioned. So we achieved so far 2 Şeker 2023 and 2 Şeker 2053. 23 represents the 100th anniversary of our national republic. So that name was specifically chosen by Songül Gürel. And by the way, Songül Gürel is the official breeder of these 2 national varieties. And 2053, that is coinciding with the 6,000th anniversary of Istanbul's conqueror. İstanbul'un fethinin 600. yılı. So 23 given by Songül, 53 was given by the general manager of Turkish Sugar Corporation. And you see Songül Hoca, Cengiz Hoca and me, and 17 projects completed, 2 ongoing, 36 publications related to sugar beet breeding, and 2 national registered sugar beet varieties just mentioned. And throughout all these project studies, 47 postdoctoral students got their degrees. So we are a big family, I would say. Musa Hocam, how many minutes do I have? Finished. Oh my God. Okay, all right, and so I'll speed up. These are the names of the varieties, and that's team. So there are some handsome guys and beautiful ladies here. Can I show you? This is the general manager of Turkish Sugar Factories. This is Bolu Abant İzzet Baysal Üniversitemiz Rektörü. I used to work there, now I work for Iğdır University. And this is Kastamonu Üniversitesi's Rektör, Ahmet Hoca. This is Cengiz Hoca. This is Songül Hoca, this is me, and this is the director of the institute. And this lady and this gentleman are the high-rank guys in Turkish Sugar Company. So this is a collaboration meeting, and we signed an agreement, and that picture was taken on that specific date. So I'm not going to tell you about the details, but lastly, these are the experimental results. As you can see here, that these are our varieties, sorry. That one on the left-hand side, 2 Şeker 2003. And if you look at the standard varieties and the mean of the standard varieties, they are more or less the same. yield and sugar production values. So our varieties are not too bad. They are competitive with the well-known, largely grown sugar beet varieties in the world. Same for 2053 variety, so values are not too bad. If you look at the seed registration and certification center of the Ministry of Agriculture, as you know that before you get registered, they test your material for 2 years in different locations. So if you look at this graph briefly, our varieties, those underlined, red underlined varieties, they are no worse than the world-known varieties of sugar beet in the world. These are the application papers, and these are some pictures. We developed our national sugar beet varieties. We produce our seeds in Amasya region, which is close here, about 100 kilometers from here. And also, this is the national ceremony of the seed harvest. This is the Vice Minister of Agriculture, General Manager of Turkish Sugar, Songül Hoca, me, and Institute Director. And we are here team. So, and that is from the field, at Songül and me. We look a bit younger. This is an old picture, Songül, I guess. After processing, seeds becomes like this. So the right-hand side one is the last stage. So at this stage, that one, and coated seeds, they were distributed to the farmers in Turkey, and therefore their performances are not too bad. In how many different regions, Songül? 15 or 16 different regions in Turkey? 15 different regions these seeds were grown, and as I said, in Haymana region, we are going to harvest them with a big ceremony. With a flash and flamboyant ceremony, we are going to celebrate this, and you will see us hopefully on the screens or the media. Okay, we applied biotechnological approaches, we did, and conclusion and future directions. I finished my time already. I think last slide, excuse me. Conclusions and future directions. Well, production of hybrids with high stress resistance, as all plant breeders are aiming for, we also put a specific effort on this. Biofertilizer studies should be also implemented. Other scientific approaches and new technologies, new practices also has to be employed and tested. Sociological studies, you may find this a little bit bizarre. What is to do with the sociological study with the scientific studies of plant breeding? But it is important. In every single part of our daily life, sociological impacts and phenomena are also important in improving environment and quality service and so on. So we have to put a specific effort on this too. And training of all agriculture workers. This is why Faculty of Agriculture and technical high schools are aiming for. And communication of projections, so we have to disseminate the knowledge. And new regulations, as I told you in some part of my talk, that agricultural policies are having trouble in Turkey. So far, it's about 100 years so far, we have not established a stable and fairly going agricultural policy has not been achieved so far. We have improved a lot, I have to be honest, but we have to be going furthermore. Okay, very last slide. I want to thank Musa Hoca and Kubilay Hoca for inviting us here, and this meeting would not be possible without their very precise, very specific efforts. And my university, Iğdır University, I am the rector of this university for the last 3.5 months. Bolu Abantizat Baysal University, my host university, I've been working for this university for the last 30 years. And of course, Türk Şeker is the owner of these varieties, and they've been putting a lot of effort and supporting us in every single stage. And Kastamonu University, a partner university for this project. And Ondokuz Mayıs Üniversitesi is the host institution. And of course, TÜBİTAK. Without TÜBİTAK, Most of the studies, specifically the sugar beet plant breeding project I'm talking about, without TÜBİTAK support, that would not be possible at all. Therefore, with the name of Serkan Bey, he is with us from TÜBİTAK. I cordially thank TÜBİTAK. I got everything my TÜBİTAK, my scholarship, PhD, postdocs, etc. and projects. If you remove TÜBİTAK from my life, I am nothing. If you remove TÜBİTAK from most of your life, you were scientifically almost nothing. Agree, Hakan Hocam? Necdet Hocam? Everyone is here. So I cordially thank TÜBİTAK. Thank you and best wish all of you. Do we receive questions or?
No, I have no time.
Okay, so I have a...
I will give you.
Okay.
Ekrem Hocam, thank you very much for a great and comprehensive talk. As a member of this day, this event, so I want to present a plaque.
Şöyle geçelim, dostlar görsün. Gerçek olduğunu görsünler. Çok teşekkür ederim. Çok naziksiniz.